revealed how a surprising marriage to her competitor led to an incredible transformation. Emma Hartley stood at the edge of her office balcony, staring at the skyline that her dreams had always aimed to conquer. But the view was marred by one name: Jake Reynolds. His latest design had just won a prestigious award, and as she watched colleagues convene around the gleaming trophy, a familiar pang of resentment twist in her gut. Why was it always him basking in accolades while she toiled in the shadows? The competitive fire that once fueled her ambitions now simmered with feelings of inadequacy and envy. Today marked a new project launch, but Emma had been assigned to the background, trivial tasks that hardly leveraged her talents. Each second spent watering down her creativity stung, reminding her that in this male-dominated firm, her dreams felt small, stifled by Jake's continuous ascendancy. Each blueprint Jake unveiled felt like a silent declaration: "You are not ready, Emma." Just as she adjusted her glasses to focus, a sudden ding from her phone startled her into reality. It was an ominous message from her boss. They needed to collaborate on this high-stakes project. Her mind raced. A collaboration with Jake, her former classmate turned rival? Facing off against him had always been a clash of wills, but now they were supposed to unite? But could she? While he dazzled others with his charisma, she had hidden insecurities, a fear he would overshadow her once more. Yet, what if this project was her chance to rise? Her fingers trembled at the prospect of sharing the limelight that she had so desperately longed for. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As she sat across from Jake in the conference room, tension crackled in the air like static electricity. His warm smile was disarming, yet it ignited a deeper anger within her. They spent hours discussing, debating visions for the project, and for the first time, Emma caught glimpses of vulnerability in Jake, a troubled artist desperate to impress not just others, but himself. Their discussions morphed into deeper dialogues, revealing convergence in their visions and fueling an unexpected connection. Late into the night, working alongside him exposed layers of shared fears, dreams they never divulged, and the weight of expectations looming overhead. It felt surreal to share these shadows, heartbeats synchronized as they dissected architecture's raw beauty. She found herself laughing, and each moment felt oddly intimate, a gnawing tug at her subconscious evoking feelings she desperately fought against. But then the fragile truce shattered when whispers of Jake's past surfaced, a breach of ethics tied to a project years ago. Her heart sank at the fallout, wrestling with ethical upbringing clashing against her burgeoning feelings for him. The very integrity she held dear beckoned her to expose the truth. Yet loyalty to Jake screamed louder as the looming deadline drew closer, pushing her to a brink she never anticipated. Emma's heartbeat quickened as she deliberated. Would she protect her reputation or stand by Jake's side, risking it all? The tightening knot in her stomach grew unbearable as her mind raced, each thought a reminder of the stakes involved. Would love mean sacrificing her ambitions? Slipping into the uncertainty of what lay ahead, Emma was caught in a whirlwind. Her heart and career teetered on the edge, and every breath she took whispered a desperate desire to break free. As morning light spilled through the office windows, Emma approached her desk with a renewed sense of purpose. The chaos of the previous night had left her rattled, yet there was also clarity in her turmoil. She needed to confront the uneasy alliance forged with Jake and redefine what it meant to work alongside him. This project didn't only hold the potential to showcase her skills, it presented an opportunity for personal evolution. Each click of the keyboard felt like her internal compass adjusting. Rather than sulking in the shadow of Jake's past, she resolved to channel her energy into ensuring that their project represented not just his vision, but her own. Fueled by determination, Emma scribbled ideas in her notebook, brainstorming ways to incorporate her unique style. With time, she began to visualize a creative partnership rather than a rivalry. Each stroke of her pen felt liberating, a silent rebellion against the constraints she had imposed on herself. The smell of coffee wafted through the office, a familiar comfort. As she turned to face Jake, who was engrossed in sketches, she noticed the scars of ambition etched on his brow. This was more than just a collaboration. Both of them were wrestling with their identities. A part of her felt drawn to that struggle. It was familiar. "Hey, Jake," she ventured, her voice steadying. "Want to brainstorm together? I think we can enhance our approach by merging our ideas more clearly." His head perked up, gratitude flickering in his eyes. "Absolutely. I was wondering how we could define our individual contributions," he admitted, the professional facade slipping ever so slightly to reveal vulnerability. As they exchanged ideas, Emma found herself stepping further into her role. Each suggestion she made, no matter how small, felt like reclaiming a piece of her identity that had been lost to self-doubt. She dissected his sketches, providing suggestions rooted in practicality while inviting him to infuse more of his artistic flair. For the first time, collaboration felt empowering, not threatening. But beneath this newfound camaraderie, a gnawing uncertainty lingered. Images of the ethical breach echoed in her mind, a dark cloud overshadowing the bright ideas they were generating. Her values whispered of accountability, pushing her to address the silent specter haunting their partnership. The weight of the decision pressed on her chest, each moment with Jake a reminder that loyalty and integrity often exist at odds. She scanned Jake's earnest expressions as they discussed their project trajectory. Was he aware of the specter in his past threatening to sabotage their success? Their visions aligned, but now personal stakes intertwined with professional integrity, turning each decision into a minefield of moral dilemmas. "Jakey, I think we need to talk," she finally said, steeling herself for the conversation that had become unavoidable. His brows furrowed, an awareness dawning upon him. About the rumors? As the unsteady ground beneath them threatened to shift, Emma wrestled internally. She could protect her newfound ally or uphold the values she cherished. Could she risk the project's success to unearth his past? A late realization struck her. Integrity can coexist with ambition, and perhaps a confrontation could lay the groundwork for growth, not just professionally, but personally for both of them. "Let's address this together," she proposed, taking a shaky breath that steadied her resolve. With the future of their collaboration dangling in the balance, Emma realized she was ready to fight for not only her career, but for something greater than recognition, a partnership rooted in authenticity. As they prepared to navigate the treacherous waters ahead, the weight of their intertwined fates loomed larger than ever. Would coming clean propel them forward, or would it shatter everything they built? The moment of truth loomed before them, a reckoning that would determine the course of not just the project, but their lives. Emma's heart raced as she analyzed Jake's expression, searching for a flicker of apprehension or resolute. This was not merely a casual chat, it was a pivotal moment. The air between them thickened with unspoken fears, and Emma could feel the stakes rising. There was a depth to Jake's past that she had to confront, but she grappled with the realization that this wasn't only about him. Each discovery impacted her, morphing the landscape of her own beliefs and ambitions. "Emma," he said cautiously, "if we're addressing this, I need you to know that I didn't intend for any of this to happen. I was just trying to—" His voice drifted off, weighty with remorse. It was a slip into vulnerability that both intrigued and unnerved her. She found herself staring at him, discerning the tension within, a desire to redeem himself clashing with the haunting shadows of his past. "I know," she replied, gathering her thoughts like a shield, "but we can't ignore what's around us. The project, it represents more than just our skills. It's built on the kind of trust we both cherish, or should anyway. We owe it to ourselves to clarify this for both our sakes." Jake nodded, but his quick glance down betrayed a fragility she hadn't expected. It was one thing to uncover the truth, but another to face its implications. She remembered her own battles with self-doubt, and for a moment her heart softened just enough to connect with his turmoil. "Let's break it down," she suggested, feeling the momentum inching forward, both exhilarating and terrifying. "What exactly happened? Why are the rumors so potent? We need a foundation of honesty if this is going to work." He took a deep breath, the kind that seemed to pull energy from the very walls of the office. "It was a mistake during a big presentation last year. I cut corners, fragments of other designs without proper acknowledgement. The fallout was huge, and it's haunted me since." Emma felt a pang of understanding. She had faced the implications of her own choices as well, wrestling with the line between creativity and originality. "You've got talent, Jake," she said tentatively, "but talent paired with integrity could redefine everything. Our project can be a reflection of that, but we need to handle this element up front, not just for our reputations, but for our growth as professionals." He looked at her, and for the first time she saw a flicker of hope. "You're right. I was so consumed by the fear of losing everything that I forgot the actual purpose of what we do, creating something meaningful." Emma leaned on her desk, emboldened by their conversation. "And I want that too. Let's find a way to make this project bloom into something we both can be proud of. But it starts with openness. We can either shift the narrative or allow it to consume us." Jake seemed to absorb her words, the tension loosening between them. "I'll make it right, Emma," he promised. "Together, we'll change the conversation around our work." Yet as optimism hung in the air, Emma felt an unease creeping back. Trust was delicate, and she had opened a door that couldn't be shut once through. What if their alliance simply catalyzed Jake's past to shadow their future? And still, she wrestled with the question, could she trust him fully, knowing the raw truth? It was a precarious balancing act. Stepping back from their intense dialogue, Emma glanced around the office. The same walls that had felt stifling now brimmed with potential. Each corner masked vulnerability, just as Emma and Jake were learning to navigate their own defenses. "Let's present our findings next week and ensure we're aligned on every detail," she said, resolute but cautious, each word reflecting a commitment to transparency and shared growth. "Agreed, and we should make our ethical framework clear from the start," Jake said, determination etched on his face. As they turned back to their sketches, the conversation carved out a path towards something larger than either had anticipated, but shadows still lurked in the corners of their minds. Emma couldn't shake the looming question behind her thoughts. Would their commitment to honesty be enough to stave off the repercussions lurking in the backgrounds, the whispers that could threaten to unravel everything they'd built? Only time and their choices would reveal the truth of their partnership. The next challenge loomed, and their journey had only just begun. As days passed, Emma felt the weight of the upcoming presentation grow heavier. Each morning, as she sipped her coffee in the muted light of her kitchen, she envisioned the meeting. Could she maintain an air of composure while navigating the uncertainty surrounding Jake's past? Each sketch they produced together felt like a dual-edged sword. Bold designs contrasted starkly with the lingering specter of betrayal. They had agreed to confront the issue openly, but transparency was a tricky path. At every turn, self-doubt reared its head, gnawing on Emma's confidence. What if the audience only saw Jake's history instead of their collective vision? Hours at the office morphed into silent planning sessions filled with exchanged glances that spoke volumes. One evening, as they pored over designs, Emma caught sight of Jake's determined expression. "You really are committed to turning this around," she said, her voice barely breaking the silence. "But how can we ensure we won't fall into the same patterns?" "I've learned the hard way that shortcuts don't pay off," he replied, his eyes locked on the sketches. "There's a lesson in every misstep. But I also see you're grappling with this. You're not just a vessel for this project. You're a co-creator. You have a voice that matters." His words, though intended as reassurance, only amplified her inner conflict. She began to question her own abilities, whether she was equipped to reciprocate the weight of this partnership. Was her input merely a shadow on the canvas of his realization? With mounting anxiety, she withdrew into herself, scrutinizing every line of the project, their collaboration teetering on the brink. Emma decided to take a bold step. "Jake, let's meet with our team before the presentation. We should open our dialogue about the project and its purpose. Together." "Together," he echoed, the weight of the term settling between them. Her mind raced. Was she trying to assert herself, or did she truly believe that transparency was the answer? They organized a brainstorming session with their colleagues, but Emma kept one eye on Jake throughout. She presented their ideas, emphasizing integrity, creativity, and collaboration. Each time she looked at Jake, though, she noticed a flicker of tension reliving the previous regret. His presence was a double-edged sword, comforting yet unsettling. As team members engaged in open discussion, Emma felt a surge of support blossom around her, and the energy intensified in the room. Ideas overlapped, resulting in a synergy she desperately craved to harness in their project. Yet, amidst the dialogue, Jake remained largely quiet, his pensive silence veiling the rising tension beneath the surface. Later, Emma caught him alone, a feeling of urgency bubbling up as she faced the weak armor that encompassed him. "I know this is hard for you," she stated cautiously, "but you can't let your past decisions imprison you. We do need to address this, together." Jake met her gaze, real sorrow etched in his features. "What if I fail again? I'm not asking you to carry my burden, Emma. You have your own journey to focus on." "Your journey is part of mine now," she insisted, taking a step closer. "We can't succeed in isolation. The truth is uncomfortable, but it can also be liberating." In that moment, something shifted. The uncertainty that hovered morphed into an unspoken understanding, a fragile thread weaving their distinct paths closer together. Emma left the office that evening with renewed determination. She could no longer afford to second-guess herself. She would step into the vulnerability of honesty, not just for Jake, but for her own growth, her own voice gaining strength as they moved towards the confrontation that awaited. The next day brought a turn of events that neither had anticipated. Rumors began to swirl again. This time, they danced around her. How would Emma handle the increasing scrutiny now that she was linked to Jake beyond simple collaboration? As tension enveloped her like the thick fog outside, she braced for the challenge ahead, unsure of her footing, but ready for whatever lay in store. It was time to confront the truth within herself and the world around her, igniting a fire that had long simmered beneath the surface. But as she prepared to face the scrutiny that loomed, one question lingered ominously. Would she remain steadfast in her resolve, or would the shadows once again threaten to extinguish the light she had just begun to embrace? The morning sun streamed through Emma's window, casting stripes of light on her work desk, where sketches sprawled like a chaotic map of her thoughts. She glanced at the looming deadline for the presentation, a mix of dread and anticipation twisted in her gut.
The chatter of her colleagues resonated from the nearby office, filling her with a sense of disconnect. Today would not be about avoiding the shadows of her choices or Jake's. Today, she would embrace them.
Today, she would own her voice, not just in her designs, but in her growing partnership with Jake. His past could not define their future unless they let it. She pushed the thoughts of judgment from her mind. They'd only serve to cloud her creativity. Upon entering the conference room, Emma felt a palpable shift. The team appeared engaged in hushed conversation, with their brows furrowed, tension laden in the air. Already gossiping about us, she thought, suppressing a sigh. Instead of retreating into uncertainty, however, she focused on her resolve. This was her moment to open the floor. "Everyone," she started, her voice clear, cutting through the whispers. "I think we need to tackle the concerns surrounding our collaboration head-on. Jake and I have been open about our past mistakes, and we want to ensure you feel comfortable and confident moving forward." As she spoke, she felt the weight of scrutiny in the room shift slightly towards understanding. Jake stood beside her, visibly gauging the atmosphere. "I understand the doubts. I'd like to assure you that we're here to create something meaningful. Mistakes are part of growth." His presence beside her felt both a safety net and a risk. Emma turned toward him, sensing a shared commitment in that moment, an acknowledgement of their intertwined fates. The discussion evolved as colleagues voiced their hesitations and aspirations, but Emma also noticed an essential shift in the tenor. Their vulnerabilities were no longer just hers to carry, and with each insight, the collective trust began to grow. Emma's heart raced. Could this truly be the turning point she sought? As she looked around the table, brainstormed ideas took root, concepts of integrity, innovation, and a breakthrough that reflected both of their visions. But amidst this collective enthusiasm, a confrontation was brewing from the corner of the room. Mark, a vocal teammate with an inclination for skepticism, didn't hold back. "You say it's all about growth, but how can we be sure that you both have learned from past failures? Are we just setting ourselves up for the same disappointment?" Gritting her teeth, Emma felt her instincts flare. "We're acknowledging our past, Mark. It's about transparency and learning. We're not trying to hide anything. In fact, we're learning from each misstep." The words left her lips with surprising confidence. Jake added, razor-focused, "And if you think we're here to repeat mistakes, you don't know us at all. This project is a chance for all of us to redefine what we can create together." Emma's mind reeled. Had they truly turned a corner? The room was charged. He was right. Their collaboration could be the very catalyst for change. Perhaps her initial fears about Jake had obscured a greater truth. They could inspire the group to embrace failure as a founding ground for innovation rather than an end. But moments later, more murmurs rose as an unexpected email notification flickered on Emma's screen. It was from HR. Her heart dropped. A formal complaint had been lodged against Jake, claiming his past misconduct reflected on their team dynamics and its integrity. The atmosphere changed instantly. Emma felt the walls closing in, suffocating her progress as the tension rebounded. Could the fragile trust they had built be shattered so quickly? Would she have to defend her partnership again? Or could she somehow, against all odds, transform this setback into an opportunity for reconciliation? Determined not to let fear dictate her response, Emma clenched her fists, ready to confront this new challenge head-on. She no longer felt that she approached this alone. They were all in this together, and together they could rise or fall. The lingering question haunted her as she prepared to engage with both her team and HR. Could she harness the power of their collective dispute to shape her own destiny? As she glanced at Jake, the new weight of scrutiny didn't feel as suffocating as before. It felt like a chance for rebirth.
Would this confrontation ignite their resolve, or would it kindle a fire that could not be controlled? Emma was ready to find out. Emma took a deep breath, steadying herself against the rising tide of uncertainty swirling around her. The email notification from HR pulsed on her screen like a heartbeat, reminding her of the precarious balance she now had to navigate. She felt a mixture of dread and determination. This was more than just Jake's reputation at stake. It was their collaboration and, potentially, her professional identity. "Mark," Emma began, her voice firm despite the anxiety clawing at her insides. "Your concerns are valid, and I appreciate you bringing them to light. But it's important that we work through them as a team instead of letting them divide us." She made eye contact, willing the others to see her sincerity. "We are all here, all dedicated to this project. Our pasts don't define our futures unless we let them." Mark crossed his arms, his skepticism still palpable, but he held her gaze. There was a crack in his armor, a flicker of acknowledgement that perhaps this wasn't just about Jake anymore. This was about them, the entire team, the collective stakes involved. Jake cleared his throat, sensing this opening. "I'm not denying my past, but what I can do is show you how I've changed. This project won't just be a test of my capabilities. It's an opportunity for all of us to demonstrate growth and resilience." His eyes searched the room, inviting others to consider the possibility of change. Emma felt a slight surge of adrenaline. The words they exchanged had become more than just a bid for understanding. Each concept began to take on the weight of new meanings. The very fabric of their collaboration hung in the balance, but instead of collapsing, it could be reinforced by honesty. She glanced back at the screen, noting the energy in the room shifting. People leaned in, curious. In that moment, she recognized her own strength. She was a conduit, channeling the unease into constructive dialogue. Encouraged by that realization, she pressed on. "What if we turned this complaint into an action plan?" Emma suggested suddenly, feeling the weight of her ideas manifest. "Let's openly discuss the risks we face and how we can mitigate them as a team. Transparency could be our weapon against the doubts." A few murmurs rippled through the room, but it was Mark's response that electrified her. "All right," he said cautiously, "but it's more than just words. How can we be sure actions follow?" Emma thought for a moment, strategizing. "Let's all define our roles and contributions clearly and set benchmarks along the way. That way, we can each hold ourselves accountable and any concerns can be addressed promptly." As she outlined her plan, Emma felt a weight lift. This was no longer just a defense of Jake, but a pledge to the whole team that they would pursue excellence together, even with the scrutiny of the past looming over them. The conversation flowed, building momentum as others chimed in, ideas merging with shared experiences. Yet, even as progress thrived in the room, another notification flickered on her screen, this time from Jake. "We need to talk," it read. Tension knotted in her stomach again. The challenge posed by HR loomed brightest in her mind, but now the scope of their partnership extended further than either had anticipated. "After this meeting," she texted back, not wanting to lose the momentum they'd built. "Yes, it's important," he replied, and that word seemed to echo, resonating with weight. As Emma concluded the meeting, a feeling of quiet triumph washed over her. They had arrested doubt, forged a path forward. But as the rest of her teammates began to filter out, Emma's heart raced at the thought of her impending conversation with Jake. What would he say? Would he see this as an opportunity for both of them to build something greater? Or was it an unmasking of deeper issues that could unravel them both? With her mindset shifted, the prospect of their discussion now felt more precarious than ever. Could this first confrontation, after unearthing the truth, solidify their alliance, or would it expose cracks they weren't ready to face? Emma steeled herself, knowing she was standing at a crossroads that couldn't lead to anything less than transformative change. Emma stepped out into the corridor, the energy from the meeting still buzzing in her veins. As she approached the conference room door where Jake had asked to meet, a flood of emotions engulfed her. She was no stranger to pressure, but this felt significantly different. It was a test of not just their professional relationship, but also the personal convictions she had been guarding closely. The conference room, once a place of collaboration, now felt like a stage for confrontation. She paused for a moment, taking a deep breath.
Did she have the emotional fortitude to navigate this conversation? The stakes had crested to heights that were deeply unsettling. The realization that she might have to confront her own hesitations about Jake gnawed at her. As she pushed the door open, Jake was perched at one end of the long table. His posture was tense, arms akimbo, a stark contrast to the confident demeanor he had presented during the meeting. The room was silent, save for the low hum of the air conditioning, underscoring the gravity hanging between them. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. It felt both formal and intimate, as if he was acknowledging the weight of their shared history. "What did you want to discuss?" Emma replied, moving to the opposite side of the table. She wished to bridge the distance, both physically and emotionally, but instinct urged her to maintain a barrier until she deciphered his intentions. Jake rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous tic she hadn't seen before. "I wanted to say thank you. I know the situation isn't easy, especially after everything." Emma didn't speak. Instead, she observed how his body language betrayed uncertainty. Somewhere behind his facade, she sensed a deep reservoir of insecurity, a reality she understood all too well. "Jake, is this really about gratitude, or is it something deeper? We're at a turning point here, and I think we need to be honest." His eyes darkened momentarily. "I'm scared. I understand why people doubt me, but your support has changed things for me. I want to show you that those feelings can change too. But what?" she pressed, intrigued yet wary. "But I don't know how. This project represents a second chance, but it's not just mine, it's ours. Working together, I can't let you down. I can't let myself down," he confessed, vulnerability crackling in the space between them. This admission peeled back layers of her own defenses. Emma had been trembling on the edge of judgment herself, insecurities wrapping around her like tendrils, suffocating her resolve. She knew from experience that reconciliation depended on authenticity. "We both have to take risks, Jake. If we're going to make this work, we need to trust each other," she said, her voice steady. "Not just as colleagues, but as partners in this." For a heartbeat, she saw the tension ease slightly in his form. The weight of honesty had shifted something unnameable in the air. Yet Emma's heart raced as she contemplated the implications. Was she really prepared to merge her aspirations with his? Before Jake could respond, the room grew dense with her swirling thoughts. This was a relationship both delicate and essential, a partnership that could thrive or collapse under scrutiny. Could she afford to entrust her career to someone who was still weaving his redemption? A twinge of fear coiled around her gut. "I've thought about how we can quantify our progress and risk as a team, but I need to know you're committed." "Not just to this project, but to facing any consequence that comes our way," Emma challenged, confronting the core of her uncertainty as much as his. "I am," he said, the resolve of his voice filling the remnants of tension surrounding them. The air shifted again. It was an understanding. They were not just rebuilding a bridge, but constructing new pathways. And yet the underlying dread lingered. With the HR complaint still looming like a specter, she acknowledged that even their mutual resolve could be tested. "Then let's move forward," Emma declared,
steeling herself against the future implications of their new alliance. Let's build those benchmarks and prove to ourselves that we can exceed expectations. As she turned to leave, an unexpected thought scratched at her consciousness. With their newfound agreement came the impending reality that this collaboration was about to reveal truths neither of them had anticipated. What awaited them in the complexities of their partnership? Would they emerge stronger, or would buried doubts claw their way back to the surface? The future loomed ahead, filled with both promise and peril, as her mind raced with one undeniable fact: the real journey was only just beginning. Emma walked away from the conference room with a renewed sense of purpose, but the weight of their discussion settled heavily on her shoulders. Trust was a fragile thing, and as she mentally wrestled with the implications of her commitment to Jake, uncertainty gnawed at her. What if this collaboration faltered? What if the looming HR complaint not only strained their relationship, but drowned any progress they could make? She returned to her desk, nervous energy propelling her motions. The familiar envelope of her office, adorned with personal mementos, began to feel like a cage rather than a sanctuary. The photographs of her previous successes swirled unnervingly in her mind, each one a reminder of who she aimed to be and what she stood for. Was she truly prepared to share this trust, to let someone else dictate the pace of her career? A flicker of doubt ignited, a question of whether Jake's redemption could indeed be her own. Losing herself in spreadsheets, Emma attempted to drown out her thoughts. Numbers offered clarity where emotions clouded everything else. As she modeled projections for the project, she realized assessing risk had always come easily to her. She had a knack for identifying potential pitfalls and addressing them with calculated precision. But this wasn't just about strategy. It was about people. A chill crept down her spine at the realization that in merging her fate with Jake's, she was stepping into uncharted territory. An unexpected knock pulled her focus from the spreadsheets, and Miranda, her assistant, peeked into the office. "Emma, there's a meeting with marketing in 15. Are you ready?"
Miranda's bright presence reminded her that every moment was intertwined with collective toil. But Emma felt isolated. She was at a crossroads, teetering on the edge of vulnerability. "Can you give me a few minutes?" Emma managed, her voice strained with the weight of her internal turmoil. Miranda nodded, and Emma let out a breath, willing herself not to crumble. Digging deeper into the implications of their partnership, she couldn't shake the thought of the upcoming presentation on their collaborative progress. They would need to show tangible outcomes, measurable results that proved their commitment to change. Striking an unsteady balance between personal and professional ambitions felt like a tightrope walk. But there was something electric about the challenge. It ignited her fight-or-flight instincts. Hours later, Emma found herself sitting across from Jake at the conference table once again, the room now filled with the marketing team. Discussions roared around them, fueling the project's momentum, but Emma's mind wandered to their conversation. She sensed Jake's eyes on her, a reminder of the unshakable connection they had formed, yet the unease lingered in her thoughts. "Emma?" Jake's voice cut through her reverie, clear and direct. "What do you think of the launch strategy?" An unguarded energy surged through her, compelling her to respond. "I think we need to focus on authenticity," she said, grounding her voice in conviction. "Our brand should embody the transformation we're striving for, not just the results, but the journey." Jake nodded, gratitude flickering across his features. The weight he had shared with her in their last conversation turned into shared determination, and somehow that calmed her jittery pulse. They exchanged a brief, understanding glance that spoke volumes. Perhaps they weren't merely two people collaborating under pressure. They were two individuals in pursuit of something greater than either could achieve alone. As they delved deeper into their strategy, the atmosphere began to shift. Ideas flowed, and momentum built.
There was a palpable energy, an odd synergy that night's raindrops contributed to the charged resolve electrifying the air around them. After the meeting wrapped, Emma felt invigorated, yet exhausted. However, beneath the surface, doubts resurfaced. Could the bond they were reconstructing withstand external scrutiny? Was stepping into this partnership a genuine leap toward redemption, or was Jake merely a reflection of her own fears? As the day drew to a close, she left the office grappling with these questions. The echoes of her conversations reverberated inside her mind, the magnetic pull of their shared challenges promising a thrilling and terrifying journey ahead. The evening sky was a tumultuous swirl of color as she stepped outside, grounding her chaotic thoughts momentarily. She realized that the next chapter of her career was all tied to choices she would soon have to confront.
With the HR complaints still hovering like storm clouds, Emma's instincts cautioned her against naivety. Looking ahead, she knew the time was approaching when she would have to confront the very essence of her choice. Was she ready for the truth about Jake, and, most importantly, about herself? As she walked into the darkness, the wind tussling her hair, a sense of impending revelation lingered in the air around her. Would the next day unveil critical truths about trust, ambition, and the limits of vulnerability? Emma could only brace herself for what lay ahead. The room responded, nodding in agreement, while the glimmer of understanding began to spread. Here, in this moment, Emma experienced an electrifying revelation. She wasn't merely defending her role. She was advocating for a vision that transcended both her and Jake. Together, they were crafting a narrative rooted in genuine transformation, a stark contrast to the projected images of failure and fear that had clouded her mind. As the meeting concluded, applause broke out, energizing her spirit. But the tumult of complex emotions weaved through the applause, pulling her thoughts back to her earlier quandaries. She needed to be cautious. With HR's investigations still underway, the stakes wouldn't shrink, and neither would the scrutiny of her choices. Stepping out of the conference room, Jake approached her. "You were fantastic," he said, admiration glowing in his eyes. "That idea of authenticity, it's revolutionary for us." Emma felt a dizzying rush. The validation warmed her, but also set off alarm bells in her mind. "Thank you," Emma replied, but something shifted within her. As much as she admired Jake's evolving perspective, she questioned whether she was merely reacting to his energy, allowing his enthusiasm to mask her doubts. With all her resolve, she navigated toward her office to prepare for the meeting with HR that lingered ominously on the agenda. How would she justify her partnership with Jake if the investigation took a turn for the worse? A confrontation loomed. Her ambitions were now entangled with uncertainties, and she sensed the looming storm. Tomorrow she would have to tread bravely into that meeting room, ready to confront harsh realities and the true nature of her alliance with Jake. Would she find clarity in navigating her choices, or would she be left stranded, questioning the trust she had extended? With the critical confrontation ahead, Emma braced herself, knowing the time for the ultimate reckoning was nearly upon her. The conference room felt suffocating as Emma prepared for the impending HR meeting. Her heart raced, not just from nerves, but from the realization that this discussion would define her trajectory, not just professionally, but personally. Today was a turning point, the culmination of her struggle against self-doubt and the embrace of her ambition rising to the surface. Empowered by her recent epiphanies, she reminded herself that vulnerability could be a strength. This conversation wouldn't merely be a defensive stance for Jake's past. It represented her stand for integrity and personal growth. As she looked around the room, her colleagues settled in, fidgeting with papers and laptops, exchanging uncertain glances. Emma's resolve strengthened. She was no longer just an architect of designs. She was an architect of her destiny. When the HR representatives entered, she felt a shift. They settled across from Emma and Jake, their expressions businesslike but cordial. Emma recognized the backdrop for what it was, a necessary discussion, yet also an opportunity to reclaim her narrative. "Emma, Jake," the HR lead began, "the purpose of this meeting is to address the concerns raised regarding your collaboration and its impact on team dynamics. We want to ensure clarity around all situations at hand." The implications of her partnership could unfold in unexpected directions, but rather than retreat behind anxiety, Emma sat tall. "We are here to openly discuss that, and I take full accountability for our collaboration. The past lessons I've learned have melded into a renewed vision moving forward." Jake glanced at Emma, surprise painting his features, a flicker that communicated unspoken gratitude. She could feel her heart steadier. "I understand that my association with Jake may raise concerns. It is essential for us to navigate these waters transparently. Acknowledging shortcomings in the past should not drown the potential for growth and innovation." Their gazes locked. There had been a shift from tension to solidarity that had become their shared story. This wasn't merely a revelation of Jake's failings. It was a profound affirmation of what they could accomplish together, despite the chains of doubt both carried. As the conversation progressed, Emma felt the table tilt slightly in her favor. "Mistakes have shaped us," she stated,
but it's the lessons learned and the actions taken afterward that will define how we navigate our futures. She could see the HR representatives beginning to nod in acknowledgement. Courage surged through her. The HR lead offered a reflective look. What steps do you both envisage taking to ensure teamwork and accountability moving forward? Jake, emboldened by Emma's articulations, chimed in. We've already planned a detailed strategy to mitigate risks and foster open communication within the team. Our combined strengths will drive this project, where our pasts shouldn't dictate our potential. This shared commitment marked a new chapter in their collaboration. As they answered questions and outlined action plans, Emma felt a weight lift. What had once felt like a burden now became a promise to uphold integrity above all. At the conclusion of the meeting, things took a sharp turn. The HR lead addressed Emma directly. Your advocacy for accountability and the transparent approach you've taken have been noted. We appreciate your leadership in this. It's a vital consideration moving forward. The acknowledgement sent a rush of exuberance through Emma. Thank you, she replied, pride enveloping her. It's been a journey, but through challenges, I have found clarity. As Emma exited the meeting room with Jake, elation coursed through her veins. They had not only navigated HR's scrutiny, but they had also reinforced the strength of their partnership.
In their shared vulnerability, something greater emerged: mutual trust, integrity, and the potential to carve out a bold path. Emma turned to Jake, and in that moment both acknowledged the metamorphosis they had undergone. "We did it," she said, disbelief mingling with triumph. "Yes," Jake replied, a smile illuminating his face. "I was worried, but together we shaped this moment into an opportunity for authenticity." As she stepped out of the building into the sunlight, Emma recognized that her willingness to confront difficult conversations had redefined her, not just as a designer, but as a leader, capable, resilient, and driven by an unwavering commitment to both her values and ambition. The journey with Jake had become one of shared growth, his past no longer as heavy as it once seemed, serving instead as a catalyst for a brighter future. In reclaiming her voice, Emma conquered the external perceptions surrounding her while also proving to herself just how far she could soar. Joy wrapped around her heart. She had transformed fear into a confident resolve, solidifying not just her professional identity, but also establishing herself as a formidable force, ready to tackle whatever challenges lay ahead. Now she could step boldly into her architecture, her lines more clearly drawn, knowing she was fully prepared to craft her narrative in both her artistry and partnership. There was no need to shy away from the truth of their alliance. Emma Hartley, once defined by envy and self-doubt, had emerged resolute, ready to construct a future where no shadows loomed over her passions again. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now because this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.